I had a dialogue with Anders Egelrud, the CEO of Stockholm Exergy. Anders was also with us in the discussion already 2001, as I mentioned before. When I told him some weeks ago that I and you should have a talk show about the greenhouse gas protocol, he said he needed advice in his work about the greenhouse gas protocol, about how to set up a framework related to negative emissions and to become climate positive. So let us listen to Anders' question.
Dear Mr. Bhatia, in order to reach the Paris Agreement, we can see that it is necessary not only to phase out fossil fuels, but also to include actions to promote negative emissions. What is your view on negative emissions, and how can it be a vital part of the greenhouse gas protocol in order to secure and mitigate climate change?
First of all, thank you to Anders for a very good question and for a very timely question. Indeed, now we are finally working on a new guidance on removal of emissions. But just I would like to do a little bit clarification here on the various terms used. Sometimes the term negative emission is used to mean any removal. But the way if we are looking at in the GHG protocol, negative emission should be used only as net negative emissions. That means that it will be, for example, direct air capture with geological storage. So not just direct air capture, which will be a removal if it is, but not a negative emission if it is re-emitted. So just a clarification that it has to be negative emission would be a combination of storage also, that it will involve both removal and storage. Now, the term climate positive generally means that how a company is having positive, broader impacts through its products or business. And to become climate positive, of course, it is seen that accounting for removals and use of removals would enable companies to achieve such climate positive goals. And so to really address this very important need, and as was saying, we are now bringing together a new systematic approach under the Greenhouse Gas Protocol land sector guidance, which is under development. WRI, in partnership with WBCST, launched this new land sector and carbon removals initiative in January of 2020. This will produce the new standards and guidance for carbon removals and storage, land sector activities, and biogenic products. We expect that companies will use these standards to inform their mitigation strategies, like I think what Anders was referencing, by understanding what are their removal impacts on land. They will be able to set targets and track performance around not just emissions, but also around removals. And they will be able to report their GHG inventories that will include in the future both emissions and carbon removals, and report progress towards GHG mitigation goals. Presently, there are a number of methodologies out there, but there is no common agreed approach. And most companies do not have methods for accounting for them, and that limits opportunities to reduce land sector emissions and meet GHG targets. We're looking into a number of, I think, important questions that will be addressed as part of this new guidance, which I think Anders and many other companies will find extremely helpful, such as how to include GHG removals in your annual GHG inventories, in companies' annual GHG inventories. Currently, companies only report scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, but then they will be able to report scope 1, 2, and 3 removals. And also, if we have additional reporting categories, like I was mentioning earlier, at least 2 additional reporting categories, companies will be able to report them also. Then how to include land sector activities from land management and land use change, how to account for broader global impacts of companies, how to account for biogenic emissions and removals related to bio-based products, such as bioenergy products, wood products, food, biomaterials, then how to also include GHG removal and emissions related to direct air capture in both CO2 utilization and CO2 storage pathways, how to differentiate between GHG removals based on their storage duration and storage pool. For example, whether it is land-based storage, product-based storage, or geological storage, and the duration. And then how do you translate these emissions and removal information into your GHG targets? Particularly, what would be most relevant for science-based target setting initiatives for the land sector companies? So all these are extremely important questions, and we are working on them in the new land sector guidance.